Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Kagekaze's Domain, and what I hope to be your place for in-depth character analysis for the Diablo 3 beta. Today I have for you not a playthrough, but some news that I thought warranted some discussion. I want to start off with something kind of fun here. A post on Diablo fans by Cherub Down reveals some interesting chat commands in Diablo 3. Apparently these are features that Blizzard actually internally uses for displaying text in different colors as well as displaying icons. What I'll do is provide a link to the original post in the video description. What you can see here though is that it uses certain strings in order to change the color of your text. You simply put in the string that you want, type in the text that you want, and then close the string much like you would in HTML. Not only can you put in this text, but you can put in icons such as the left mouse button, the right mouse button, bullet points, an audio icon, platinum and gold icons. Also changeable is the font size, and there may actually be more options. The original author will be looking further into this possibility. Alright, moving into actual news, and this one is fairly important. There has been a change to the way Blizzard is going to be handling Inferno difficulty mode. Previously, as you may have seen in my videos, I talked about how Inferno was going to be kind of a flat difficulty setting, where you could pick whatever level you want, whatever act, and farm it for the same items. All monsters in Inferno mode were intended to have the same monster level. This meant that the same item drops would occur no matter what act you were in Diablo 3's Inferno mode. This has been changed. They felt like this was a bad progression. It didn't feel right. So what they wanted to do is make it so that your difficulty will still improve as you go up in Inferno mode. The ultimate goal here is to make it so that you still have a chance, at least in possibly Act 1, maybe 2, in Inferno mode, and that you can still find some decent items. But the difficulty will increase as you move along, meaning that higher acts will still have higher chances to drop better loot. Now the justification for this is much like in Diablo 2, a badly rolled item in Act 4 may still not be as good as a well-rolled item in Act 1. That is to say, if an item in Act 1 rolls with perfect stats, and if you've played Diablo 2 you know this idea, that certain items had a specific range, and for an item to drop perfect stats meant that it had the maximum value available. Perfect stats on items in Act 1 may still be better than items in Act 4 if they don't roll well. What this also does, and this isn't mentioned by Blizzard, but it has been guessed by some of us in the community, is this will allow them to kind of introduce new items when they provide a new expansion pack. Previously, with Inferno being a flat difficulty level, it would feel kind of weird for new items and more powerful items that were introduced with a new act, say Act 5, it would just suddenly be dropping in the earlier act. So now, with the natural progression, you would end up working towards Act 5 and ultimately farming in Act 5 in a future expansion pack. Blizzard recently took the time to provide a Q&A session that was originally started in other regions, but now has an official English translation. One question posted is the availability of gems to be slotted into different pieces of equipment. Apparently on the official site, only the head and weapon slot effects are listed for gems. Blizzard wanted to let us know that the website is currently incorrect, and that gems can still be slotted in the slots that we've seen before, including weapons. They did remove the diamond and the sapphire a while back, as they didn't feel that these stats were very interesting. They have not removed the possibility that these could come back in a future patch. A little while back, someone asked what would happen to dies on equipment put on the auction house, as some people thought that people using the collector's edition might put their unique dies on items and sell them on the auction house for a higher price. Blizzard quickly responded to this to let us know that items put on the auction house would actually lose any dies that were placed upon them. Blizzard did, however, mention that you can take an item, dye it, drop it on the ground or trade it to a friend, and these items would still retain their original properties. This means that if you have a collector's edition, and you wanted to give someone an item with the collector's dye, you could simply do this by dyeing the equipment, trading, or dropping it. So this means that if you have friends that would like to have your colors, you can do that for them. Perhaps you'd like to sell the service. Blizzard doesn't feel that this will be a serious issue in regards to making the colors non-unique, as they feel that items will be replaced quickly and that this shouldn't become a serious issue. Some mentioned that they were concerned that there was a detachment with the blacksmith where you would level him using gold instead of using raw materials. Blizzard felt that using raw materials wasn't quite right, as if you neglected using your crafting, then they didn't want you to be punished for going into a higher act, wanting to make some items, and then suddenly be roadblocked with the blacksmith, having to go back, farm low-level items. This is something that you see in a game like World of Warcraft, and they felt that this would kind of detract from Diablo 3. One statement was posted that the model of certain items did not match the artwork in the game. The specific example given is the life potion. It seems to be a cube when dropped on the ground, but when you pick it up, it's a vial. It was asked if they would fix this. Blizzard has stated that they have no intent to make it match. The 3D models in the game were never intended to be accurate representations, and were simply meant to be simple models that were easily recognizable. One question that many of you may have wanted to know was whether or not you could kick someone from your game, say someone's being disruptive. Currently, they have plans for a system to kick other players, but it's not going to make it into the game at ship. What they want to do is stop and see how people interact with each other before they supply this system. You may recall in World of Warcraft they did something similar, where they added kicking features to groups, and then they put in features to be able to track how people use the system. They were then able to put something in place that made it so that people that kicked frequently would lose their ability to kick over time in case it was arbitrarily done. There was a question regarding hardcore characters and what could be done if a character was lost due to lag or server instability. They stated that playing hardcore does come with risks, and they are risks that you willingly take when you start a hardcore character. They also stated that hardcore characters will not be revived under any means. There was a question regarding damage types for certain abilities. For example, the Witch Doctor having Haunt, which does arcane damage, and then Spirit Barrage, which does physical. And they asked, why is this the case? They seem to be that should be another arcane ability. Blizzard stated that the damage types for abilities really are not chosen based on the ability itself, based on more the visual for the ability. So it appears that the art team has a lot to do with what kind of damage types you'll see with the skills we get now and in the future. One question that I was looking forward to the answer to was whether or not certain affixes will affect every ability that you have, specifically as a caster, notably using, say, Spectral Blade or Ray of Frost. Blizzard has stated that all affixes should apply to all abilities. Speaking of affixes, monster affixes have been a point of contention. People wondering what will happen if certain groups become unbeatable. If you get a certain combination that makes a unique or super unique just that hard to kill, what does Blizzard plan to do? They've stated that they don't feel that there's any combination that can't be beat with a little ingenuity or basically a little elbow grease. So basically, what they have stated, though, that is if there is a possibility that there is a monster that is unbeatable, they will look at it and adjust it accordingly. Regarding Magic Find, it has been confirmed that Magic Find does not have diminishing returns. This is especially important with the new Nephalem Valor system. Speaking of Nephalem Valor, it's been asked if a person joining the game will have their own stacks and where those stacks would start. It has been confirmed, and this is basically what I assumed when I made my Nephalem Valor video, that a new person would come in starting with 0 stacks. This, of course, would then be averaged out across the group. The Nephalem Valor buff also has no limit to its range, meaning that if you're in town and your group kills a unique monster, then you will also get that buff. It happens across the entire game. The wonderful thing about the shared gold and magic find is that Blizzard has confirmed that ashes, loose stones, and the like benefit from your gold and magic find, just like I had hoped, and where I had talked about where you have the possibility of finding the best item in the game from a barrel. This has been confirmed. Everything you find is affected by your gold and magic find no matter what you do. Killing a monster, opening a barrel, opening up a crack in the ground, whatever it is, you will have that chance. That chance is a lot smaller if it's not a unique monster, but it is still there. Meaning that it will never hurt you to open up a vase or a barrel and hope that you find that epic sword. Now, you may have seen me talk about it, and you may have seen other videos talk about stunning, especially stunning bosses, in which it sometimes seems a little too easy to stun bosses and keep them from moving. If you get a certain group composition, you might be able to stop a boss from reacting at all. It has been confirmed, as we assumed, that there will be CC reduction, including snares, for higher difficulties. Good news comes in the form of a question that I myself have posed as well. It's in regards to whether there will be elemental resistances or flat-out immunities. If you recall in Diablo 2, monsters that had certain affixes could be immune to certain damage types. This meant if, for example, you were a cold sorceress and you ran into a monster that was cold enchanted, you were actually not going to hurt that monster, nor were you going to slow it down. You were pretty much boned unless you had some other skill to fall back on, such as Fireball or a Lightning spell. Now, monsters do not have immunities. This is a great thing to hear. This means we will not be hindered by our choices. However, resistances are still in effect. Now, because there's resistances, you can still use a skill that they're resistant to if it has a secondary effect like a snare and be able to benefit from it. Also, with the way Diablo 3 is set up, you can always change your skills in order to help you fight a monster that has these affixes that are troubling you. Now keep in mind, if you do decide to go that route, that you will be removing your Nephalem Valor stacks once you've hit level 60. Finally, the last question we have here is in regards to the maximum movement speed. Someone wanted to know, is there a maximum bonus to this, or can you keep stacking it? The maximum is currently set to 25%. It is stated, though, that some skills can break this cap, like Sprint. Now, if you hang around Diablo fans, chances are you probably saw the issue where the official skill calculator had been changed, and not quite for the better. It appeared like the calculator had removed a lot of the changes that they had made for patch 15, both good and bad. Specifically jarring, though, was to see things return such as Haunt become a primary spell again, which I don't quite agree with because it's honestly not a spell you can spam. A lot of damage changes and tweaks that seem to go back to previous patches. Well, honestly, once the data was reviewed by most of Diablo fans, it pretty much looked like this was patch 13 just getting put on the calculator for some reason, and shortly after, the calculator had been returned to patch 15 values. Well, I have to admit, with all these changes that they make, and the closer we get to the game, it makes the wait harder and harder. But honestly, everything I hear just makes me want the game more and more, so I think I'm going to be really happy when it finally does come out. The change to Inferno Mode I know is going to be a point of contention. Some people have. It's already been stated that they believe Inferno Mode to be nerfed. It was never specifically stated that they made the opening acts easier. So it's kind of hard to say, is it really a nerf? It's a possibility that they were made easier, but again, they're adding in that creep of power. So as you go into acts 2, 3, and 4, they will get progressively harder. I understand this, and I kind of think that that's probably a good idea. Yes, I did like the system where you could pick whatever act you wanted in farming it. That was honestly great to me, but I can also see the problem with it. The problem there could be you could find a group of monsters or a boss that's fairly easy to kill and still run into the trap of you're just going to farm this one area over and over again. Some enterprising user is going to come out there and they're going to do it. They're going to say, hey, you know what, if you have this build or this kind of ability, you can go out here, kill this group and this boss over and over and over again. The reason for that is just because if they were all equal, all the same level, all the same power, the end boss for Act 1 compared to the end boss of Act 4, let's say, comparatively, Act 4's boss may not have been harder. Certain mechanics of certain bosses in the mid-game might actually make that boss harder than the end-game boss or, a boss before them. Not to say that Diablo is going to be a pushover. This is simply because if they have the same power, maybe you're not very good at certain mechanics that another boss might have, or maybe a mechanic of one of the bosses is actually really easy. The only reason why he was tougher compared to the other bosses is because his power was just that greater. So I think this, gives you something to continue to fight for. This really wasn't a problem in Diablo 2. People kept, fighting, higher and higher acts. We'd go to Ball runs, Mephisto runs. Honestly, the only thing that you ended up farming bosses for in there was just because they had the highest chance of dropping loot. This, honestly, with this new system, Inferno having slight changes, as well as the Nephalem Valor system, I really think we're still going to see where you can kind of pick where you want to go. They've stated over and over and over again that Inferno Mode is going to be really hard. They're anticipating people taking a long time to really get to the end of that. Now, whether or not this is just bravado or if it's true has yet to be seen. I mean, there are people out there that are really good, and I'm sure they will end up breaking Blizzard at their word and showing them that, yes, someone can beat it in a couple days. But honestly, I'm hoping that they do make good on their word. They have been continually hyping Inferno Mode and telling us this game is hard. You will die. And I'm kind of hoping for that challenge. I also like the leveling experience. So therefore, I have no problem with not being able to progress too far in Inferno. I'll probably be playing a bunch of different characters anyway, but I still do want that challenge. And I'm really looking forward to them giving that to me. Well, that's been my opinion on the matter, and this has been all the news that's fit to print, as it were. Again, all these news stories came from Diablo fans. You can just go to www.diablofans.com to read them for yourself. They are on the front page. I will provide a link to the chat programs or the chat text strings that I mentioned earlier in this broadcast. And hopefully this information has been useful to you. Maybe I provided additional insight if you're a Diablo fans reader. I know this is just kind of a rehash. You already know about it. But maybe I could put kind of a different spin on it, since I also gave kind of my opinions on some of these pieces. Alright everybody, I want to thank you for watching. This is Kage Kaze. Please thumb up the content if you like it. Leave questions, comments, or suggestions in the fields below. Also, I've opened up a new mailbox called TheShadowPost at gmail.com. I welcome you to use that if you wanted to provide me with any more in-depth feedback, suggestions, or questions that you may not want to post in the public venue. That's perfectly fine. Please feel free to use it.